Forks on the Road by Cary, Jensen. Chapter 5 Blue Moose Bar and Grill. Blue Moose Bar and Grill represents our first quest into East Grand Forks, a mostly residential Minnesota suburb of Grand Forks. The Moose is located just north of Deemers Avenue across the Red River of the North from downtown Grand Forks, North Dakota. The restaurant is an unconditional Grand City's favorite and has been for many years. The Moose was not always situated in its current location. It and several other neighboring restaurants used to be closer to the river. But this particular river floods periodically. In 1997, the Red River of the North reached its highest level in more than 175 years. Grand Forks, East Grand Forks, and almost everywhere else near the river flooded. It was a major disaster and was exacerbated by the nearly complete loss of downtown Grand Forks to fire. Yup, that's correct. During one of the worst floods ever recorded, downtown Grand Forks mostly burned down. But this has nothing to do with the Moose, so I will let that story be told elsewhere. Following the flood, the Army Corps of Engineers erected extensive flood control barriers on both sides of the Red River. During this construction, the Moose, a very large building of log cabin construction, was moved from its former location to its present site, a couple hundred yards away from the river and just outside of flood control. The Red River of the North happens to be one of the few rivers in North America that runs northbound, roughly 200 miles all the way up to Lake Winnipeg. This northern flow is a major contributing factor to the occasional flooding that occurs during the spring thaw when ice dams that form in the colder north block snowmelt warmed in the south. On the North Dakota side, the west side, the flood barrier consists of a dike that runs along the river. This dike is interrupted periodically where roads and access ways cut through. These openings in the bank, however, can be closed when flooding threatens by inserting great barriers that slide down into slots built into the dike at these crossing points. There's a dike on the Minnesota side of the river as well, but there's a deliberate break in the dike where it would otherwise block the view from the restaurants. That area is protected by a series of freestanding towers, each with slots designed to accept flood barriers. If a flood is imminent, barriers can be inserted between these towers too. As a result, except when high water is present, which is once in a blue moon, the patrons of Blue Moose Bar and Grill can view the splendor of the meandering river from the restaurant's idyllic outside deck. As I've already mentioned, the Moose is a log cabin by construction, with beautiful exposed logs that have been lacquered to maintain a warm, pine-colored presence. I suppose that there's a fireplace somewhere to complete the picture, but I haven't wandered around the place enough to find it. In any case, Rick and I opt to visit the Moose on a Saturday, which in and of itself may have been the mistake. It is crowded with tourists and locals, and a few too many screaming children enjoying a rainy day indoors with kith and kin. Rick gets the Mediterranean burger, a burger on focaccia bread with tzatziki sauce, while I have the Caesar chicken wrap. We also order a couple of cold draft beers. You kind of have to have a beer when you visit the Moose. Their selection of 40 beers on tap makes it mandatory. The bar itself is craftily called the Back 40, which is just a little too cute for my liking. Our experience at Blue Moose Bar and Grill is only okay. To Forkers, this must be sacrilege. After all, the Moose is an institution in this area. I'm sure that many a Forker has proposed marriage in the Moose. I think that our disappointment with the Moose is driven in part by the elevated status the locals attribute to the place. The food is good, but not great. The prices are higher than anything we'd seen so far, but certainly not out of line. In other words, the restaurant's reputation is so good that we probably entered with unreasonable expectations. This is the first time I've actually eaten at the Moose, though I have sampled some of their fine drafts in the past. We subsequently returned to the Moose, and our initial evaluation was reinforced. During that visit, I ordered a hamburger. When I asked about the lack of condiments when my order arrived, I was informed that I had to pay extra for mayonnaise and ketchup, a whole $1 more. What? That's bananas. Why don't they just include that in the price of the hamburger? Maybe the locals' fondness for this place is really just a case of cognitive dissonance. As in, we're paying a lot for this food, it must be good. Rick's subsequent observation seemed somehow appropriate to me. I judge a restaurant's ambiance based on whether I would feel comfortable sitting here reading a good book. While I don't really see the connection between reading and eating, or reading and drinking for that matter, I didn't get the impression that Rick would have liked to read a book at the Moose. At least not with all the racket the kids were making. Honestly, neither would I.